I'll do my very best to get this job that I so crave.
Hey, welcome back to Multiplex Fanzone Debate. We are here for another debut match post Mayhem at the Multiplex 5. We are doing all these singles debut matches in Fanzone Debate. And I'm very much looking forward to it because we're going to get some fresh blood and some new people on the roster in the matches that have been just absolutely annoying the shit out of me. They've been knocking on my door like, Tim, when am I going to get to play? Tim, they're just saying it over and over. I'm just kidding. They signed up on a post. I'm very excited, though, because like I said, new people, always good. Interesting to see what they can do if they've got what it takes. So we got Will Cohen. We got Brandon Cohen. Yes, I made them play because they have the same last name. That's the only reason. There was literally no other reason. That was why. Kirk, you're here to judge this one with us. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited for this one. Like you said, it's great to see so many new people interested in the game. I know Will a little bit more better than Brandon, but I haven't seen either of them in this kind of setting. And just new personalities, new strategies, new takes on the game are always fun to see. So I'm really looking forward to this match.
And Brian, you are here. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I've seen both these guys around. I've been, I think, involved in a couple of just for fun things with them, but obviously not in debate. I have not seen either of them debate in any league or anything. I don't know if they have or not. But so, it'll be nice to see something new. We don't know what to expect. We haven't heard him, so see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's bring him in. We'll start with Brandon of the Cohen variety. Brandon, welcome to the show. I don't think you and I have ever met, but I'm looking forward to having you. Yeah, how are you doing, sir? Are you excited? Have you debated before in other leagues? How do you feel about Will? Let's do it all.
I mean, I don't want to get into what I feel about Will because that would taint the rest of the show. But I'm excited. I don't know what I'm doing. You say we signed up on a post, and I'm learning now that I need to read the posts because when you messaged me, I was like, what am I doing? I don't remember signing up for this, so I'm excited. I got some notes. I'm ready to argue my shit, and we'll see how I do.
Sounds good to me.
That's all I got.
Will, we'll bring in Will. Will, welcome. Do you remember signing up on the post?
I do remember signing up on the post. Before the green room was set up, I just didn't realize that you remembered that I went
back. I went back and looked.
That's fair. But after I have been doing movie battlegrounds a little bit as well, and so I'm eager to see how I do in this format. The format's a little bit different. I'm still very new to debate. This is my first year doing any kind of debate settings as well as trivia, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. People keep saying the format is different. I wouldn't know. But here's how this show works. There were 4 questions given to the players based off of 4 categories that they drafted. So they are going to debate those questions tonight before our very souls. And at the end of each question, Brian, Kirk, and I are going to write on our handy-dandy boards who we think won that question. And the best 2 out of 3 votes wins the point, and the first person to 3 points wins the match. You each get a 1-minute opening and a 1-minute closing, and in between that is your 5-minute free form. So, gentlemen, do you have any questions about how this is going to work?
No, not really. Just want to point out also on July 15th from Will, I completely forgot I signed up for the debate league. So caught him in a lie already.
Ooh.
I don't remember sending that post, but
He doesn't remember sending the post either.
Lies. Caught in the act. Gentlemen,
I got receipts.
Let's do this.
Don't worry, I'll do my...
That's the wrong video. Let's do this. We're off to a great start. Guys,
Am I the bear in that, or am I Mark Wahlberg in that?
You and I were asking the same question, buddy.
You can be whoever you want to be. So we're going to kick this off with the first question, which is going to be from the category of DreamWorks. This was drafted by Will. And the question is, what DreamWorks film would be the worst to turn into a live action film? So, Will, you drafted this. That means you get to go first. You have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking, and I will come in to give you a 10-second countdown when the time comes.
So for the worst DreamWorks film that would be that could possibly go live action, I had to go Kung Fu Panda for one simple reason: it would just be pointless. If that remake of The Lion King showed us anything, it's that you can make things photorealistic, but it's essentially going to be pointless when there's no people itself to act off of. And that's Kung Fu Panda's problem, is that there's no human characters. So really putting, essentially a bunch of CGI characters in quote unquote a real setting, that's still technically animation. That's just absolute animation, just in a different format. Now, if there was something to go off of, there was some interesting angle they could do, that'd be one thing. But there really isn't. And let's just face it, that would be horrible.
Time. Okay. We'll move over to Brandon. Brandon, you now have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
Sure. So I think Ants would be the worst DreamWorks animation being made into a live action film, because going off of photorealistic, when it comes to like The Lion King or the Jungle Book, you can kind of see some emotion in the characters' faces. But having just tiny little ants running around, especially just voiced by Woody Allen being all hot and bothered, would not work at all. The movie's kind of about nothing. It's just ants talking. He kind of becomes a hero, but it's really just ants talking. So just having a zoomed out setting of just these ants running around, talk about pointless, that would be the most pointless thing ever, because you couldn't be able to read anything off their faces. It's just little tiny ants walking around.
Okay. Ending about 20 seconds early. Ants versus Kung Fu Panda. Gentlemen, you have 5 minutes when one of you starts talking. Please don't talk over each other, or I'll get very, very sad. So don't make me sad.
So after rewatching Ants recently, I realized that what they did was very interesting. They actually made the ants more human. And so they had human faces, they stood upright, they had human interactions, versus ant interactions, really. And so it would actually be pretty easy to translate that into live action. In fact, you can actually make it with practical effects. You can put them in, costumes with puppet effects. It could actually be kind of fun. Whereas with Kung Fu Panda, these are characters that the only way you can really do it without it looking really, really, really horrible is by doing it CGI. But if once you make all the characters CGI, why are you making a live action film to begin with?
So my rebuttal for the practical effects or humanizing, the ants' faces was, we all saw, or actually probably didn't all see, Cats. So having these life-size people with these fake ant faces would be absolutely horrifying. And we all saw how that worked out. I think on the other side with Kung Fu Panda is, yes, it's Kung Fu Panda, but you can have these animals. You can kind of take a different spin on it. So they can have these animals fighting. It can just be a panda who's fat and lazy and needs to prove himself and to these other animals. So you can have them fight. It doesn't have to actually have them standing up doing, kung fu. It can be kind of more of a who's throwing stuff at me? That's fun. You can kind of be more of just like a coming of age tale, or a guy who is fulfilling his destiny. It doesn't have to actually be like a CGI panda. It can look like an actual panda, do the photorealistic thing. So I just think we've all seen how Cats worked out. So I think if they did a CGI or a live action version of Ants, I really think they wouldn't have these horrifying faces of.
Well, then you're misunderstanding what I'm saying then, because with my proposal for a live action Ants film, it wouldn't be like Cats. Cats use a lot of CGI in that and delved into the uncanny valley. This would be them in costumes. It would look quasi cheesy, but they could lean into that very easily. Whereas the pitch that you just gave for a live action Kung Fu Panda movie, it sounded like you said that there wouldn't be any action or kung fu, which would absolutely take out the meaning Kung Fu Panda.
No, there would be. Just
And then
sorry,
it's okay. So that's what I got out of that argument, and therefore that seems pointless. Second of all, if they're not, if they're not fighting, if they just looks like a real panda, well, that's still animation. That's still proving my point that if you're going to be doing these things and make it look like a real panda doing all these things, then why are you making why aren't you just making an animated film? Why aren't you just making Kung Fu Panda 4 or just something else in that regard?
Yeah. Well, the question is, what would be the worst movie? So the fact that it's pointless doesn't really make it bad. It makes you don't want to see it. So if it's the worst movie where, like you said, they could make these animals fight each other, and necessarily it could be pointless, but not be bad. But having you said itself in costumes and makeup being cheesy and kind of just honestly doing nothing and just talking, that would be, in my opinion, pointless, but also just not entertaining and a bad movie.
But you see, the thing with that is that there's many, many different things that involve puppets, that involve practical effects like that have been done in the past, and it's actually been done very well. And so giving people a template to do something that could actually have a lot of potential automatically, in my mind, doesn't make that the worst thing ever. Just because Ants is considered a lower tier DreamWorks film doesn't necessarily mean it's the worst to be adapted for a live action film. I've seen lots of bad animated things go to live action, and they've actually been pretty good. Taking a beloved property such as Kung Fu Panda and trying to make it live action for some reason when it's going to be it's going to be CGI. Doesn't matter if it's photorealistic or not. It's going to be a pointless endeavor because it's going to be one animation style versus another animation style. You're adapting something and essentially just making it animated again, and that's pointless.
Yeah. Well, they could also take the other route of just instead of photorealistic animals, they could just use real actors and have a fat guy. So have actual Jack Black learn kung fu, and actually instead of animals, just kind of translate the story into. So there's other ways to do it besides just photorealistic animals.
Time. Okay. Brandon, we are going to start with you. You have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
Okay. So I just think with Kung Fu Panda, there's a lot you can do with it. You can do, like we said, you can do the photorealistic animals. You can have them fighting in their ways that they fight, and maybe even learn how to fight in different ways. It may be pointless, but it doesn't necessarily be a bad movie. You can also make the argument that you can just take the story and translate it into live action with live action actors. For me, I just think with the Ants having, the two ways he said, with like the Cats route, or you go with the puppet route, that just seems terrifying to me to have these giant, especially with what's going on with Woody Allen. Just would be terrifying seeing these guys just talking and doing kind of nothing, because that movie is just super boring. So I just think Cats, or not Cats, see, now that in my head, Ants doesn't work for me. Be horrible.
All right. We will move over to Will, who has 1 minute to close his argument when he starts talking.
So all the options that my opponent gave, to try and make this a live action film, all just kind of go back to what I'm saying. What is the point? The question was, what is the worst one? Meaning, why, which is the worst option to even make? Pointless is a definitely factor in that, because you have to get people to actually want to go see this movie. And a live action Kung Fu Panda movie, no one wants to see that. Whether you do it like in the style of the Jungle Book, where you did it in any of the styles that he mentioned, and especially the costume angle, doing all of those with Kung Fu just sounds horrible. And he's only just, all he's doing to me is just proving my point that is absolutely the worst. Ants, it was never meant to be a big action film. It was mostly supposed to be this cutesy little movie interaction with interacting people, that could easily be done with puppets.
Time. Okay. We are going to bring in the judges.
At least we know we're getting the weird question out of the way.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. That's fair. How we doing, judges? Do you hate me yet? So that was a weird question. That was some weird shit. I've done questions like this before, and like with Pixar and like Disney and like stuff like that, and people usually like pick stuff with like humans, and I didn't think this one through. That being said, I went with Brandon. I thought that this was fucking weird, and that both of them kind of canceled each other out a lot. But at the end of the day, Brandon convinced me that whether or not it was the meaning of the question or not, at the end of the day, that ant puppets would be fucking horrifying, and the movie Ants is boring, and at least the movie Kung Fu Panda is interesting. And so no matter what way you do it, it's at least more interesting than Ants. And I was convinced of that. So, Kirk, where are you going? Why?
I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to go with Will on this one.
Okay.
And my reasoning is, again, you both painted a really nightmarish picture of what these movies would be. So thank you for that. But I think a couple things out of the two, I mean, the puppets would be disturbing, but like, I mean, at least that's a kind of an interesting take on it. Yeah. And also, I think that a couple things Will said was the first one was that, despite the animation factor, Kung Fu Panda's a beloved movie. Why would you remake that where Ants is kind of forgotten and give that another try? And also, I like he came at the end where a good point. Ants has a lot less action to it. So, however you decide to put it on screen, you're going to have a lot less challenge translating that because you don't have to have them doing flip kicks and stuff. So, that's the way I went with that one.
Okay, Brian, where are you going?
Home, please. The question definitely should have been what DreamWorks film involving humans, because both of these would be awful movies. I think a lot of it got dragged down into the logistics of how you would create the movie as opposed to what movie deserves and what movie would make a good movie. I did find it kind of amusing when Will says, there's no good way to do mine, but we can do your ants with puppets, and I'm like, really? That would not be good either. But so really it came down to, logistically they both suck. But like you, I felt that Brandon did a better job of explaining to me why, his film would just be boring. And like Kirk said, I mean, you could change it up, you can do anything with it, but then it's not even a remake anymore,
All right, fair enough. So Brandon wins the first point. So it is 1-0 as we get into the next question, which was drafted by Brandon. This was in the category of sports. The question: what is the best character in a baseball sports film? So Brandon, you get to kick this off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
So best character in a baseball film, I am going with Roy Hobbs from The Natural. For those who don't know, played by Robert Redford. He's playing catch with his dad in the beginning of the movie. A tree gets hit by lightning. He makes a bat out of that tree. That's Wonder Boy. He takes it through his entire career. About to get drafted, gets shot. And then 16 years later, as an old man, gets signed as a rookie, and he has the bat of, Wonder Bat. Just cracks. Gets home runs. He bottom of the 9th inning. He's bleeding. He hits a home run, shatters the lights, streams, flames come down, makes out, bangs Glenn Close, has a kid, and he's just the embodiment of is just the American dream. He had hardship, he overcomes that, and he overcomes and becomes one of the best baseball players of all time. It's just an amazing story and very interesting, and what he overcomes and what he goes through makes him a great character.
I'm sorry. I've never seen The Natural, so that made me laugh really hard. And I saw Kirk laugh backstage. I'm so sorry. All right, Will, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
So when I think sports movies, I think about the underdog. And for me, there is no better underdog than Scotty Smalls from The Sandlot. He is a great narrator. He is a very reliable narrator. And we get to see his journey from this just absolute nerd, this absolute geek. And he gets to, then he just slowly evolves into a very good baseball player. Not as good as some of the other people on the team, but that was never the journey he was going to take. But he began to love this game that he had no clue what it was about, and that's very compelling at the end of the day. From the time that he gets, from the time he gets to learn how to catch a baseball and throw it, from the time that he gets to learn to hit, from the time that he gets to learn the rules, how he bonds over the sport with his stepfather and his mother, and to the very end, that's a very compelling story and a very compelling character.
Time. All right. Sandlot, The Natural. Gentlemen, 5 minutes of freeform when one of you starts talking.
All right. So my problem with Smalls is he's not even the most interesting or best character in that movie. First off, you said he was the underdog, but he doesn't. Underdog, you have to kind of make it. He doesn't really make it. He gets one shot, and then everyone else has to kind of cover his ass, and he gets saved by a blind Darth Vader. So he doesn't really kind of overcome any obstacle besides becoming friends. And in that movie alone, you got Ham is a better character, more entertaining. Benny the Jet, everybody wanted. I wanted to take Benny the Jet, but I didn't want to take a character from that movie. Everyone wanted the PF Flyers as a kid. Everyone wanted to be Benny the Jet. He's the one that made it as a pro. Smalls just became the commentator at the end of the movie. So Smalls is kind of annoying and just doesn't really, for me, there's way better choices from that movie.
But here's where you're wrong. He is the lens for the entire movie. We see everything through his eyes. And so we get to see him grow as a person. We get to see him essentially take the hero's journey. We get to see him evolve. We get to see him become their friends. We get to see we get to see his friends rely on him for things. And he becomes part of the group. He becomes an integral part of the group when he was a complete outsider to begin with. And that's why that's very interesting. Let's move over to Roy, though. Roy kind of embodies all the reasons why I don't like Superman as a character. He's too perfect. He's just he's outrageously moral. He is perfect at every aspect of the game. He's a good runner. He's a good hitter. He's a good, pitcher. He just, he is just perfect and uncorruptible in every single way. And that is boring. After a while, it's just extremely boring to watch this perfection just keep being perfect because there's nowhere to go from there. You don't improve. You never get to see any kind of a evolution from him, really.
Well, he gets shot in the beginning of the movie, and then he talk about the hero's journey. He gets shot, doesn't think he's ever going to make it, and then he relies on his skills and able to overcome those obstacles and go up and become the natural, the great. And when you talk about, because in sports movies, for me, when it comes to characters, you got to have these characters have to have these iconic moments. And in baseball movies in particular, there's a couple iconic moments, and a lot of them are from The Sandlot. But a lot of them, "You Killing Me, Smalls," or they're not or jumping over. None of those moments actually involve Smalls. When you want these big characters, you want these characters to be memorable. And as a baseball fan, the most memorable sports movie moment for me is him smashing the lights. So that for me, you don't have to for sports movies. You want the hero. You want the guy who's amazing. That's what you're looking for. You want someone who has some odds to overcome, but he's able to actually overcome those and prove to all the viewers that, wow, this guy's actually made it.
Yeah, great. You get to watch him overcome, but he's just perfect in every regard. And you said yourself, he got shot. So he has this bullet in him for 16 years, and he's still doing all of these superhuman feats. He's still whacking the ball so hard that it's shattering lights and virtually causing lightning storms. It's so far-fetched and ridiculous. And then on top of it all, he's just embroiled in this gambling scheme. Oh, he's like, oh, well, I'm too good for that. So I'm not going to throw the game. He's just uncorruptible. It's just boring. And when he's not being Mr. Perfect, he is not a good team player. He's yelling at his coach. He's yelling at the owner of the team. But with Smalls, on the other hand, he is a team player. He wants to be part of there. And instead of allowing himself to give up, he continues and becomes a good baseball player. And that's the reason why he is one of the best characters in that, if not the best character from The Sandlot, because he's the only one who's honest. He's the only one who gives us really the good accounts of everything. And at the end, when he gets to see, when he gets the ball back from, as you put it, blind Darth Vader, that's such a very touching moment. That doesn't happen to anyone. That's an iconic moment right there. That's a moment that's relatable and iconic. And not only that, the great moment where he catches the ball for the first time, that, like watching his face just light up going, oh my God, I caught it. That's iconic and relatable. That's why Scotty Smalls is better than Roy, because not only is he great, but he's relatable.
Okay. Will, we are going to start with you. You have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
The great thing about The Sandlot in general is that it kind of redefines what a baseball movie is, where it can actually be about camaraderie as well as the sport. And that's why Scotty Smalls is such an integral part of that, because he's really he turns out to be the glue that holds the entire group together. And so when we get to see him, as the commentator, we get to see his lifelong friend hit that home run in that, in the major leagues. That's such an iconic moment as well. Roy is essentially Superman without Superman powers, but he has that Wonder Boy bat. Oh, I made it by hand. Oh, could he be cheating? No, he's not cheating. Oh, he's great at hitting. He's great at pitching. He's great at everything. Oh, I'm not going to sleep with random women. I'm going to do all of these great things. Okay, eventually that's just kind of boring, but we get to see Scotty Smalls actually evolve, and that's why he's better.
Time. All right. We're going to move over to Brandon. 1 minute when you start talking.
For me, as a sports fan, you want these stars. You want someone that is larger than life, someone that little kids can look up to and say, I want to be that guy. I want to smash those lights. And for me, Smalls just isn't that guy. Like I said before, he's not even the best part of that movie. He's fourth, fifth best. The Twins probably below him. He's probably like fifth best in that movie himself. There's iconic moments in the movie. None of them really, go around him. It's all everyone else trying to save him. Yeah, Roy's perfect, but that's what you want in a sports star. You want these guys that you can look up to, that you're say like, I want to be that guy. Knocking a guy because he's good at baseball, that's what makes a good baseball player, right? He had the overcome. He overcome getting shot, right? He had the bullet in him, but he still made it. He was a pitcher before, then he became a batter. He can do it all. And that's what sports movies are all about. Yeah, these cheesy moments, but for sports movies, you need those big set pieces. And that's why Roy Hobbs is the best baseball character.
Time. All right. We will bring in the judges. Man, I have so much I want to say. This is the one time I think I wish I would go first. I really do. But I can't because Brian's going first. Kirk, are you ready? You're muted, so I don't know. But
I am not ready. I'm writing a name down now.
Okay. Brian, kick us off.
So well, for starters, I think that Will made some really good points about how his character is more relatable. Because yes, when somebody is the perfect person, it can be boring. But I actually did end up going with Brandon again. For me, I think that Will unintentionally kind of helped support Brandon's argument, because Brandon talked about how Smalls isn't even the best character in this movie, and then Will goes and says, well, this is why Smalls is one of the best characters, if not the best character. So he kind of backed up what he said there. And then sorry, I lost my train of thought. Then Brandon talks about how the iconic moments take place, they don't involve Smalls, they take place around Smalls. And then Will said in his closing argument how there are iconic moments, like when you watch his lifelong friend hit this home run in the major leagues. That's an iconic moment. Well, he's watching his friend do an iconic moment. So I just kind of think he shot himself in the foot a little bit there.
I get what Will was trying to do. I thought the comparison to Superman was actually really interesting.
I agree.
Of saying, like, if you're too perfect, you're not a relatable, interesting character. So I liked that aspect, but I did find it funny that the way he said it, beyond just the immediate comparison of he's like Superman is, God, he's so good at baseball. He doesn't bang multiple women. Holy shit. What an asshole. Man, that made me laugh. Sorry. I'm sorry, Will. Unintentionally, you made me laugh really hard. I did go with Brandon. I thought that Brandon did a really, really good job of being like, of countering the Superman thing of being like, yeah, he's kind of perfect. Well, actually, the first counter of like, dude, he got shot and he had to overcome that. So, like, no. But then to come in and say, like, you come to these movies for big sports set pieces, and this guy is the perfect baseball player for these types of moments that you're looking for in these movies. I've seen The Sandlot. I don't love it. I really want to watch The Natural now. Like, Brandon sold me on this movie hard. Like, I've never seen it. I really want to watch it. So I went with Brandon. He wins the point. But Kirk, where are you going?
I actually went with Will. I just think that when I listen to these debates, sometimes I'm like, especially in this situation where I've seen both movies, like I'll say, okay, here are the points you need to make to overcome that. And I don't think Brandon necessarily. I think Brandon just kept chugging along at his points and didn't do enough to go after. He wasn't nuanced enough to go out in this one to go after Will's the points they're making. And I think Will's points were beatable. Brandon just didn't, go in for the kill. I am glad that Brandon won though, because he made the objectively correct choice. Roy's a much better character, but I thought Will did the better argument on this one.
Perfect. Okay. So Brandon is up 2-0. That means that Will does need to hit this in this next question in order to avoid the knockout. So we are going to get into that third question, which was drafted by Will. It is in the category of musicals. And the question is, which post-1990s musical is the most fun to watch with friends? So, Will, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
So I made the absolute sadistic asshole decision to go with one of my sadistic asshole favorites, and that's Repo the Genetic Opera. Why? Why is this the best one to watch with friends? Because you can get one of two experiences when you do this. One, you can watch it with a bunch of friends who have seen this and can just laugh along to the outrageously silly, gory moments when you see Anthony Stewart Head doing a duet with himself and a victim that he made into a puppet. You can laugh along with all of these things, and my personal favorite experience, getting a group of friends and one of them hasn't seen the movie. So not only get to watch the movie itself play out and all these wacky numbers and everything, but we get to see someone experience this for the first time and watch their minds just explode at the process. That is a must-see moment. I love this movie for that.
Time. Underrated pick. Let's go to Brandon. You have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
So I went with Anna and the Apocalypse because I think this is the best movie to watch with friends because, to be honest, I like musicals, but not everybody likes musicals. So this movie and the Apocalypse is the perfect blend of everything. Everyone loves zombies. Will and I, last name Cohen, don't like Christmas movies, but most people like Christmas movies. People love the Brits, right? And all of a sudden, it's also a musical. So it's a zombie, Christmas, British musical. It has everything. It has the big Disney-esque songs. It's got the great action. It's got a little bit of scares on it from the zombies, and it has a lot of heart and emotion to it too, with her relationship from her father. And it's just perfect for friends because not everyone wants to sit around watching a musical. So they get this. You get a little bit of everything for everybody. And there's some hilarious moments with some of the dance numbers, especially when you first see the zombies. And I think it's just the perfect pick because it has, like I said before, it has a little bit for everybody. You're not forcing someone to watch a 2-hour
time. All right. Anna and the Apocalypse and Repo, the Genetic Opera, 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So I almost, honestly, I almost went with Anna of the Apocalypse. What made me stop and say, no, I'm not going to go with this, for one solid reason. That final act. Yes, it has emotion. It not only does it have a lot of emotion, it brings the mood down, and not even just gradually, it just knocks the beams directly out of you and it comes crashing down. It is no longer the happy, fun affair that the first half of the movie was. By that second half, it's becoming way too dark. It's becoming way too depressing. And when I want to see a movie with my friends, here's a good story. I actually saw this with a group of friends. All of us left wanting to die after this movie. That's not the experience you want to have with your friends. You want to laugh, you want to carry on, you want to talk about what your favorite moments were. And that's Repo the Genetic Opera in a nutshell. You get people you wouldn't think would be in a musical. You wouldn't think Paris Hilton would do well in a rock opera, but she's actually knocking out of the park. If Anthony Stewart Head from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you have a great cast.
Yeah, my thing is with there's nothing being worse than being forced to watch something you don't like. And you kind of said in the beginning, that movie's not for everybody. There's a lot of gross stuff in it. Like I wouldn't feel, like me personally, I would not feel comfortable being like, oh, I got this perfect movie for you guys. You got heads coming off, you got gore, you got Paris Hilton. It's just impossible to sell. For me, the other movie is just it's easier to sell. There's more stuff in it for everybody. Yeah, it's a little sad at the end, but it's still hopeful. There's still hope in it because she still overcomes the zombies, moves on with her friends. Yes, she lost her dad, unfortunately, but lots of movies have emotion in them. Lots of movies have sad moments in them. It's just, I wouldn't want to watch, if I didn't know what Repo the Genetic Opera was, I wouldn't want to watch this gross movie with these long songs and it's like, what is going on? This is weird. I just want to go home and watch Kung Fu Panda. It's just not a movie for everybody. And I think it's easier, especially because you have to know your audience. You have to people who haven't seen this before, or if you have all seen before, then great. Any musical is going to do.
All right, so then your pick makes it really ironic then if you're not really looking for, supreme gore or anything like that, because the Apocalypse is very gory. There's lots of head splatting, coming off. There's lots of blood splatters. There's lots of limbs being severed everywhere. And so if you're not looking for that, then why would you go with your own choice?
Well, because it's done in a different way. You all know Repo the Genetic Opera, the campy, the trauma-esque style gore. It's different than the normal zombie-ish. There's nothing really. It's zombie gore, but it's nothing really gross. There's lots of gross moments in Repo the Genetic Opera, and there's nothing in Apocalypse. Yeah, I watch a lot of horror movies. So my friends can watch horror movies. There's nothing really like, oh, that's disgusting. I never want to eat again. Like the stuff that's in Repo the Genetic Opera.
Well, you see, and I completely disagree. There were plenty of moments when I saw End of the Apocalypse where I was just completely grossed out and just felt empty inside after watching it. Whereas with Repo the Genetic Opera, it's coming from one of the directors of Saw, who directed a lot of the Saw films in the franchise. And so you kind of already know what you're getting in, going in with that, especially since this is his big passion project. But here's the thing. The question is, what would you want to see with friends? Now, if you've already seen this movie and all your friends have already seen this movie, getting them together and having a big laugh at all of it, all of the campiness, that is fun. Whereas with End of the Apocalypse, I would want, if I want to have a good, time with them, I would shut the film off at the hour 15-minute mark and just go, okay, that's all the good campiness. That's all the good fun. Let's go move on to something else before we feel hollow inside.
Well, the question says nothing about fun. It says the movie you want to watch with friends. When I watch movies as friends, especially if I'm picking the movie, I want to pick a movie where they turn it off and they say, "Wow, that was really great." And I think Anna the Apocalypse, and I love showing this movie to people because I don't even tell them what it's about. I go in and saying, "There's a zombie movie," and they watch it and they're like, "Wait, there's music into it," but the songs are actually catchy. The songs are great. It seems like they're written for Disney movies. And it's just an overall great movie. It doesn't have to be fun. It is fun, but the question doesn't say nothing about fun. It just says, what is a good movie to show or watch with friends? And this movie with the singable songs, the fun action, the horror elements, the heart, everything, it makes for an overall enjoyable watch. There's some dark moments, but enjoyable watch. And everyone I've showed to comes off with saying, wow, that was a great movie. Why have I not heard this before?
And so what you're saying is that when you go see, when you get all your friends together, you don't always want them to have fun when watching the movie? Because I think when a good group of friends are getting together to watch a movie, that's supposed to be a fun time.
Okay. Brandon, we're going to start with you. You have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
So when I get to show friends a movie, I want to pick something that maybe they've heard of, maybe they haven't seen it. And for me, I show this movie to my friends all the time. And Anna the Apocalypse is the perfect movie because it has a little bit of everything for everybody. You can have a good time with this movie. It's very enjoyable. The songs are great. The first time you see the zombies and they're doing this little dance number, it's making fun of musicals too, which everyone always enjoys because musicals are ridiculous and cheesy. So this is great because you have them dancing in the front, zombies in the background, eating kids, eating people. It's just an overall blast of a movie. It has heart. It has good music. And it's just every person I've showed this movie to says, wow, that's a great pick of a movie. Movies can be sad. You can be sad and still enjoy yourself. I enjoy myself. I have heart. I have emotions all the time. I like feeling things from movies. And I think Anna the Apocalypse has everything for everybody. You feel something, you laugh, you cry, you have an overall good time.
Okay. Let's go over to Will. You have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
So my opponent complained with Reboot Genetic Opera that it's gory, that people would not have a good time because it's gross. Well, you can say the exact same thing about Anna the Apocalypse. It has, with Reboot Genetic Opera, it has catchy numbers too. It has gore, but he just said that he doesn't like gore. He just said that he doesn't like over-the-top violence. Well, then why did he choose that film that has over-the-top violence? Yeah, there's catchy songs, but at least with my film, there's a solid happy ending that's consistent throughout the thing. There's a tone that's set throughout the entire film. It's just great, campy fun the entire time. Whereas with Anna the Apocalypse, he says that it ends on a high note, that there's hope. There isn't, because they told you in the very last song, which is no Hollywood ending, that this is not a Hollywood ending. There is no hope, and it's just absolutely sad. And that, to me, when I want friends to come over, I want them to be laughing and have a good time, not cry.
Okay. Bring in the judges.
Can I get a repeat on the question, please?
Yeah, you can, Kirk, because the question reads, what post-90s musical is the most fun to watch with friends?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And judges, have you guys seen Repo the Genetic Opera?
I have. It's been a long time, but I have.
I used to love it because I'm a weird person. Doesn't the main character die at the end? I'm not letting it judge my opinion. I just thought it.
Who do you consider the main character?
The Repo Man.
You see, I consider I consider the main
Does
character.
the Repo Man die at the end? Will, does he die?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Oh.
Yeah, goddamn. No, I just it's not going towards my vote because it was never brought up. But when Will was like, "It's a happy ending," I'm like, "Doesn't the lead die?" Anyway, Kirk, we're gonna start with you.
Yeah, I went with Will. I think Brendan did just lose a little focus on the question. I think he may have forgot what the question was and kind of conceded the fun aspect about 2/3 of the way through the argument. I think Will was winning anyway. Just I think the real, Brandon came at him with, well, your movie's over top and gory, and Will's right. He kind of picked an over top and gory movie too. So kind of conceded that, but I think like just the fact of that he kind of gave up on the fun part is what put Will over the top for me.
Brian.
Yeah, I don't like repogenic opera. I do enjoy an Apocalypse, although not as much as some people in this community. I agree the ending it kind of loses steam as it goes on. But I did go with Will because I think that while he made a good argument for why his movie is a better one to pick for a group of friends who have different tastes. There's something for everyone, that kind of thing. As far as which one is the more fun to watch, Will kind of painted a picture of the experience you can have, actually a couple different experiences you can have and why it's fun with your friends.
Yeah. I also went with Will. I thought that Brandon did a good job, but I agree that when he kind of said the question says nothing about fun, well, yeah, it did. But actually, Will never actually countered that by saying it did. He just kind of went along with it. I had already he was winning in my mind already. Had he said that, it really would have sealed the deal. But I think that when Brandon got tripped up on the gory stuff, but I understood both sides of it. I understood where Brandon was coming from of it's okay to have an emotional ending and all that stuff. But I thought by that point, Will had kind of sealed it for me. So I thought it was a good fight, but yeah, Will takes the point, which means we are moving on to the fourth prep question. This was drafted by Brandon in the category of the MCU. The question is, what is the coolest moment in the first 3 Thor films? So, Brandon, you are going to get to kick this one off. You got 1 minute when you start talking.
So, those who hold this hammer is worthy and can hold the power of Thor. So I went with, knowing that in mind, that is what makes the character of Thor, is he is worthy. So I went with his fight in the beginning, in the first Thor movie versus the Destroyer. Because throughout the movie, in the beginning, you see him all cocky. You see this guy, this kind of douchey god, and then he becomes a total human. And then you're kind of waiting the whole movie, and it's building you up. And then finally, Loki sends down the Destroyer. The Warriors 3 are there, and Thor says, no, this is my fight. Sacrifices himself, and then in that moment, gets knocked. And in that moment, he finally proves to himself that he is worthy to hold Mjolnir and hold the power of Thor. And for me, that was just the coolest moment because you didn't get to see him as Thor. And then finally, it built it up, and it was the first time we saw him on screen, and it was just, I remember seeing it in theaters. It was glorious.
Time. All right. We're going to move over to Will. Will, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
So I chose Thor Ragnarok's final battle on the Bifrost Bridge. Why did I choose this? Because this is just the fight to end all fights in a Thor film. This was the culmination not only of Ragnarok, but really every Thor film that came before it. You get to see everyone either have a big redemption arc, from Karl Urban's character turning against Hela and just coming literally guns a-blazing. You have the Hulk wrestling a giant wolf into a water fountain, which that sentence alone is just cool in itself. You see Thor coming in with his lightning powers and just blasting everybody, and it's all to the throbbing beats of Immigrant Song. If that doesn't spell cool, I don't know what does.
Time. All right. Guys, 5 minute freeform. I must ask you to never use the word throbbing again, but other than that, you guys may continue. 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
So for me, the knock on the end of, I have a couple knocks on the end of Thor Ragnarok. It's that the whole movie is loud and there's a lot going on. And in this scene especially, there's just a lot going on. And it's kind of hard to follow on the first watch. As with my scene, everything is building to this moment. There wasn't much action leading up to that, so you're always waiting for Thor. Where's Thor going to happen? And Thor's on the screen, and finally he proves himself worthy, and you see, and he just finally overcomes the enemy. In Thor Ragnarok, he has help. You know, I know the question doesn't say anything about it says the coolest moment, but it's just the moment itself is when he gets the hammer. And I think when he gets the hammer, that is overall the coolest Thor moment and the coolest moment in all of the movies.
Well, you see, you said it yourself, the coolest moment, not the most profound moment. If it was the most profound moment, then I would, that I would definitely concede that your moment is great. But for the coolest moment, when I think of cool, I think of just action-packed. I think just great music. I just think just stunning visuals. And your scene, unfortunately, doesn't have a lot of that. And the scene really is pretty brief in comparison. Whereas there's a lot to take in. As you said, there's a lot to take in the first watch. So that means you have to watch it again. Oh, darn. You have to watch this movie again and again. And every single time you watch this scene, there's something new that you get. And it just keeps getting cooler and cooler the more you watch it.
So here's my point. So with my moment, you use the word moment. With your moment, you're using the word scene. So the question is not which scene is the best in Thor. So which moment of that scene are you taking? Because you've talked about, you haven't even talked about the coolest moment of that scene, in my opinion, but you've talked about the Hulk. You've talked about you talked about the song. You talk about Scourge. You haven't. Those are themselves moments. You haven't picked one specific moment, because the question doesn't say what is the coolest scene in the first three movies. It's what is the coolest moment. And my moment that I picked is just that. It's a moment. It's the moment he sacrifices himself and becomes worthy of Thor. There are other things I'm thinking of in your scene that maybe in that scene that are better than others. Yeah, I haven't even think you picked the best part of that scene, but you haven't picked a moment.
Well, you see, if you're going to go by the literal definition of a moment, who's to say how long a moment can be? And that's where that's where I think you're kind of you're trying to muddle my point a little bit here. You're trying to muddle this. And let's just be honest, I'm not going to let you. A moment can be 3 seconds, it can be 5 minutes, it could be whatever time, it could be whatever time frame. There's not really a time set. So if so the fact that I'm going with this entire scene, this entire fight on the Bifrost Bridge, that is eligible to be a moment. And just because it's dense, just because there's a lot going on, just because just because many people get to have the culmination of their own arcs in that, doesn't mean that the moment itself is invalidated by it. It doesn't mean that my scene is invalidated just because it's not as brief as your scene is.
Okay, but again, you haven't really talked about the kind of what has, you said it's all led to this, but you haven't really mentioned what has led to this, what the character arc is. For mine, it's a clear character arc of it's the whole culmination of the movie. You have the guy comes down to Earth, loses his worthiness because he's, his head has grown big, and then he completely finds himself, sacrifices himself, becomes the hero, and it is the moment where Thor himself. These are Thor movies, and Thor in my scene, Thor himself becomes the hero, defeats the Destroyer, makes out with Natalie Portman, and just audiences around the world go wild.
Okay, so then if you want me to discuss it, I'll discuss it very quickly. So Thor loses his hammer. He loses his his father. He loses all hope of getting Asgard back, and so he leads this charge with these new friends that he made to get one last battle in for Asgard. A hammerless Thor manages to still wield lightning powers and still demolish enemies. Then you have Valkyrie, who is getting over her own alcoholism and fear, and finally getting a chance to be the badass that she is. You get Hulk, who is getting over his mental illness. There's so many things going on that it's just great.
Time. All right. We are going to start with Will. You have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
So I do want to reiterate that a moment can be longer than 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It can be as long as it is because that's still a moment. And just because there's many things happening in a moment doesn't mean it's not a moment. So so when the battle kicks off to it finishes, it is just action packed. You get to see the Scourge have his final redemption. You get to see Valkyrie have her redemption. You get to see the Hulk have his redemption, and Thor gets to prove that he is still worthy and still gets to, still be a badass at the end of the day. It's yeah, brightly colored. Yeah, it's noisy, but you know what? You're still having fun. It is still enjoyable. This is still an absolute, just stellar, cool moment. Whereas with Brandon scene with the thing, yeah, he gets to hold the hammer, but then once he holds the hammer, the fight is over in 2 seconds. That's a very fleeting moment.
All right, Brandon, we will go to you. 1 minute to close when you start talking.
So Thor is this badass Norse god. You want him to be able to defeat anything put in his way. And for this entire movie of Thor, you don't really get to see him be there. And you're just sitting there. You're watching him on screen. He's great on screen in what he does, but you're sitting there. You want something more. You want him to finally hold the hammer, be worthy. And when that moment happens, it makes the entire movie. Without that moment, it ruins the whole movie's shot. And that's why I think it's the coolest, because you finally see him get to be worthy. And for his moment, I think it's not even the best. I didn't want to bring it up because he said it later on, but it's not even he realizes he doesn't need his hammer, but in the next movie he gets the axe. So that, for me, Ragnarok's kind of ruined because of the better scene in Avengers Infinity War. But for my scene, you finally get to see him be Thor. Thor has the hammer, and you can see his worthiness, and it's great.
Time. You just recontextualized Ragnarok for me a little bit, Brandon. Interesting. Okay, we're going to bring in Kirk and Brian. Okay. I'm going first, aren't I? Oh, crap. Okay. Couple things here. The semantics argument of what is the moment, what isn't. Will's answer was accepted. So therefore, I think to say the final battle on the bridge was accepted is we consider it for the qualifications of this question. That being said, I did go with BC because I thought that Brandon was able to explain to me through the plot of the first film why when Thor, that in that moment of him sacrificing himself and grabbing the hammer to take on the destroyer is just like dripping with cool. And I thought that Will got a little bit caught up in Brandon's jabs of yours isn't a full moment. Which moment are you picking? Like, Will got a little caught up in that and ended up explaining the entire plot of Thor Ragnarok, which he didn't need to do at that point, just because Brandon basically egged him to. And I think what kind of sealed it for me was Brandon actually kind of shooting himself in the foot a little bit by saying, there is so much going on. There's so much going on. Well, if I'm looking for a really cool moment, I think Brandon did a better job of explaining why his is very singular, the one character, the character the movie is about, and this moment being cool for that character. So that's kind of what sold me at the end of the day. But I thought it was close, at the end. I think Will did a good job, but I think Brandon overall was able to sell me more. So, Kirk, you go next.
Yeah, Brandon made that very common rookie mistake where he tried to argue the semantics of an already accepted answer, which, no shame in that because I think everybody's done that, at least once. And Will, I really like that moment. Will was like, I'm not going to let you do that. I was like, yeah, Will, you stand up for yourself. Don't let him do it. But then Will spent the rest of his argument defending his moment and why it was a moment. So at that point, it kind of turned into a little bit of a slog. So I'm more or less kind of, because the Cole conversation at that point had kind of ended. So I kind of go with everything before that. I did still end up going with Will, though, because I think before that moment, Will, from his opening argument, Will was talking about the music and the Hulk fighting a wolf and just bringing up a lot of really cool stuff. And he did, like, I agreed with him completely. He said if it was the most profound moment or most meaningful moment for the Thor character, yeah, Brandon had it. But if something just cool to watch, it's the Red Rock Bridge fight.
Okay, Brian, you are deciding this one. Are we moving on to the speed round, or are we finishing up?
Well, I do think that I mean, if we were talking about best fight, best scene, things like that, the bridge scene is definitely up there. It's very cool. Brandon, I think that in the last question he kind of forgot the fun aspect of the question. On this one, I think he very wisely zeroed in on the moment idea of it. And while yes, the semantics of what time wise takes up a moment is moot, I think the idea of a moment is perfectly exemplified with the way Thor gets the hammer. And Will tried to downplay with, okay, he gets the hammer, but it's not about he gets the hammer. It's about that moment when he becomes worthy to get the hammer. And so I thought Brandon did a good job of expressing that.
All right. Well, that means your winner is Brandon Cohen. We are going to go into post-match interviews, starting with Will Cohen. Will, great job tonight. You did really well. And I, if I'm not mistaken, I think Kirk voted for you every time. I could be wrong about that, but I think he did. So I always say this to people, Will, just because I only voted for you once doesn't mean I hate you. I don't hate you. But I think you did really well this evening. How are you feeling about the match?
I'm not mad at it. I'm just going to be honest. Like, again, I've only been debating for, I think since like December of last year when I did some exhibition over in Movie Battlegrounds, and I had no idea what the fuck I was doing over there. And so I've been learning, and these are good. My strategy, I thought were okay. They didn't pan out. That's fine. Brandon being an absolute rookie, I don't believe he's ever debated before. You wouldn't know it with that performance, though. So, who's to say a different? One thing I always say whenever I do these debates is a different set of judges could have had a different outcome. And who's to say a difference? Who's to say, if I had different judges other than Kirk and Brian over here, it could have possibly swung my way. It may not have, but you know what? At the end of the day, was this a good match? Yes. Is this going to be entertaining as hell for people to watch? Yes. I'm surprised you don't hate me for saying the word throbbing. I apologize for that. I couldn't think of any.
That's true. I forgot about that.
You can want to take me out, but you should actually like Kirk because he voted for you every time. So you couldn't do better than that.
I thought he voted against me at one time, but maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to that. I was just paying attention to, is this going to go my way? By the time that the second point landed, it's like, this is not going to go my way. That's fine. I still had fun.
Good. Glad you had fun. We'd love to have you back, Will. So thank you for being on the show this evening.
Anytime you want to have me.
All right. Sounds great. Will, thank you for being here. Let's bring in the winner today, Brandon. Brandon, great job. If that is true that you've never debated before, I think Will's right. You wouldn't know based on the performance. I think you did a really good job. How are you feeling about the match?
I've been debating for years, just never on camera. But I feel great. Honestly, like I said before, I didn't know what I was signing up for. But now that I've experienced this, I'm definitely going to be putting even more work into the next one because I obviously put work into this. I wanted to win this, but I wasn't really sure what to expect, but this was absolutely a blast. I enjoyed watching this or doing this. And to be honest, I thought I was prepared to just win. Like I thought I had the sports one in the bag because of the answer. I haven't seen Repo, the genetic opera, to be honest. So I was kind of succeeding that point and putting more stock in the other ones, the DreamWorks one. And I honestly, I was mad because that Thor moment is awesome. And that would have been my pick, but that's the nature of the game. So being able to kind of And the jabs were I was trying to cause a little chaos because I was worried that I was losing that because he mentioned the music and everything, but he never mentioned like him coming down with the thunder, which I was kind of alluding to was that is the best moment of that. So to win that point, that's what I really wanted to win, is just try to win that point. But like you said, I love this group of judges. So I had two of you. I had a great time, and I'm looking forward to I want to do this again. I want to put even more work into this and get better at this, because this was a lot of fun.
Well, you're going to have an opportunity to very soon, sir, because you are going to be playing again. Will be playing the winner of Tyler Birch and Alex Martinez. Now, 2 questions for you. A, do you know who either of those people are?
I played with Alex before.
Which one would you rather play?
I don't care. I can debate a shoe. I can do anything. I don't mind.
You probably win that one too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's maybe not a shoe.
Depends on the shoe. That's for
yeah.
sure.
I don't care. I'll go toe to toe with anybody. I'll come up with my random bullshit, and I'll have fun doing it.
All right, lots of toe references. I'm into it. Brandon, great job.
Tarantino or something?
Yeah, right. So great job, Brandon. We will see you with the next match. Brian, final thoughts from you.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what you expect from debut matches. I mean, there's people that kind of get to know the format, kind of shake off the cobwebs, kind of thing. I think it's interesting that while Will ended up losing, he's also the only person that swept a question with all the votes. Yeah. So I mean, so both of them definitely had their strong points. I am very excited to watch Brandon versus Shu. That sounds like a fun one. I'll judge that one. Yeah.
Kirk, what about you?
I love it when the person I don't love it, but it's the best case scenario for me when the person I vote for every time loses, because they can't be mad at me for losing. And as far as the winner goes, who cares what I thought, because they won. So I'm coming out pretty rosy either way. But no, I think they both have like the makings of pretty solid players. I think they both have very different ways of coming at the game. And I think they both just need to tighten it up a little bit. And I think they could both do some damage. Like I said, both of them, I think, just made some simple mistakes that cost them. But they both have the makings of pretty good players.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. Well, that's going to do it for us today at Fanzone Debate. Thank you so much to Brandon and Will. Thank you to Brian and Kirk for judging this one with me. I have been Tim. We will see you in a couple weeks for the aforementioned Tyler versus Alex. That'll be a good one. We'll see you real soon with that. And until then, have a good one.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.